Hello again. This time I'm going to show you how to frame up an embroidery frame like this one here so that your fabric's really tight and so that it stays tight. This method can be used on a variety of frames, but I'm going to demonstrate on this roller bar frame here. This is the framing up set available on the website. Inside this set we've got some herringbone tape, got some white string, a buttonhole thread with a needle, and a bracing needle. You'll also need a few extra things, so you'll need a pair of embroidery scissors, some sewing pins, and then the piece of fabric that you want to frame up. So first you need to take your piece of fabric and fold over the end about 1 centimetre, just under ½ an inch. And then we're going to just crease that with my finger and then do the same the other end. Crease that and then fold that in half. I'm just going to find the centre point of that, and then when you fold it in half you can just put a pin in on the crease like so, and do the same the other end. And a pin in that end as well. And then you'll notice that on my frame I've marked the centres of the tape on the frame. We're going to match the centres on the frame with the centres on your fabric. Now the wrong sides go together, so that's the back, so that's where the fold is. That's the back of your fabric, that's the back of your tape. Put the two backs together, lining up the centre together, and then you can just pin that in place like so. And you can do the same the other side. Back of your fabric with the back of the tape, line up the mark with the pin, and then just pin that in place. Pin your fabric to your tape all the way along, start from the middle, centimetre or two apart, about that far. You'll notice I'm just putting the pins downwards so they don't stick into me, all the way to the end of the fabric. So work from the centre and back to the other side so that it's pinned all the way across. Once you've done that, do the same to the other side of the frame. Once you've finished pinning both sides of your frame, we're going to sew the fabric to the frame. I'm using 50 centimetres of the buttonhole thread, and I've put a knot in the end. And then I'm just going to over sew. Take the pins out as you get to them. I'm just going to over sew the two pieces, so the fabric to the herringbone tape. Fairly small stitches, but pull them nice and tightly. This is going to take a lot of the strain when we tighten the frame, so this must be really secure. I'm going to work my way along to the end. You can vary the length of those stitches a little bit if you like. You can see, don't worry about them being neat, it's about them being strong. Take the pins out all the way to the end of your frame. Once you've reached one end, just go back to the middle and then start again in the other direction using a fresh piece of thread. When you reach the end, just over sew in the same area 2 or 3 times just to secure the end of the thread, like so. And you can just cut your thread off. Next you will need your piece of herringbone tape. You'll notice that I've cut this to length so it fits the embroidery fabric. If you look carefully, you'll see that the tape is made up of 4 sections. We're going to place 3 of these sections on your embroidery fabric and 1 section off, like so. And then we're going to pin that in place. Now I'm going to pin it down the 3 sections that are on the fabric, so in the middle of those 3 sections. and just put your pin straight across. Place your pins about 2-3 centimetres apart, it's about an inch, across the tape. Finish that side, you can turn the frame around and do the same to the other side. Don't forget that it's 3 parts of the herringbone tape on your embroidery fabric, 1 part off, and then you're pinning the middle section of the 3 that are on the embroidery fabric. Now you're going to sew your herringbone tape to your embroidery fabric. So I've got another 50cm length of the buttonhole thread, and I've put a knot in the end of that. I'm just going to start the thread in the same row that the pins are in with a straight stitch across. Just go over this a couple of times just to secure the end of the thread, like so. I pull mine quite tightly, you'll see why shortly. So take your pins out as you get to them and just straight stitch right across that herringbone section where you had your pin. You can be fairly large stitches with this. Stitch straight across, and you can just see how I'm pulling that up tightly. That's so that when we stretch the frame it's really, really secure. When you reach the bottom, you need to finish the thread the same way as you started, just with a couple of stitches in the same area, just to secure the end of the thread. Like so. You can just cut your thread off, and then you need to repeat the same process for the other side of the frame. Don't worry if you run out of thread halfway down, just finish it off the same way you would at the bottom, so 2 or 3 stitches over in the same area. Just cut off that thread and then start your next thread in exactly the same way as you did at the beginning. Next you need your bracing needle and your string. Now these needles are very, very sharp, so do be careful of the points. Thread your string in your bracing needle. There's no need to cut it to length, we can do that later. And then I'm going to take the needle down through the herringbone tape. Now we're going to take it between that first and second section, but not through the fabric underneath. And just straight down, and then it goes under the frame and over the top, and about an inch apart, 2.5 centimetres, straight down between that first and second section, and it goes underneath the frame and over the top. You'll need to just pull a bit of string through so that you've got enough to get to the end. So about 2.5 centimetres, an inch between each one, through that webbing but not through the embroidery fabric underneath. If you go through that you will rip the fabric, so just through the herringbone tape. Just be careful of that point on the needle, all the way along to the end. Notice that I'm not pulling the string tight, just want to get the string in and then we'll pull it tight later. When you get to the end, just leave yourself the length of the string to tie off around the frame. About 30 centimetres is enough. Then repeat for the other side. Before we tighten the frame, we're just going to tie one end of the string to the frame so we've got something to pull against. So you just need to take your string and wrap it crossways around the frame like so. A couple of times, leave yourself an end to tie off, and then I'm going to tie a slip knot around the thread. This is so that you can easily get it undone if you need to tighten your frame. So we just fold the string in half, hold it at the bottom and pass the loop underneath the top thread. Then take your thumb and your first finger through the loop. Take hold of the loose thread in your thumb and your finger and pull it through the loop. Pull it forward, backwards and forwards to tighten your slip knot. So now I'm going to just take up the tension on one side of the string. I'm not going to pull it tight because I don't want to pull this out so it distorts. I just want to take up this tension. So just one at a time, pull up each part of the string. Notice I'm pulling with one hand and holding it in position with the thumb on the other hand. Not pulling on it at this stage, just taking up all the tension in the string right to the end. And then I'm going to tie this end as well, but again not tightly, so just a couple of times around the frame and another slip knot around the end string. So make a loop, thumb your finger through, grab the loose end, pull it down, pull it up and back down again. Then I'm going to repeat that with the other side. So now we need to tighten our frame all the way over. The best way to do this is to do once this way, another time this way and another time this way, so that you gradually tighten it up one at a time. So I'm just going to, I've got a roller frame, so I'm just going to tighten the rollers around here and fasten the wing nuts underneath. If you've got a slate frame, you need to tighten up the pegs. If you've got one with a screw attachment on it, just tighten up the screws. So just roll that frame round, tighten those screws underneath. Tighten it the right way. Once you've tightened it across the frame that way, you can tighten your string again. So all I'm going to do is just pull one end of the string loose, because we've tied a slip knot, that comes undone easily, and then just start to take up the tension in this string. Not too much, because we're going to do this gradually, so just a bit at a time. You can see this pulling now on this herringbone tape. When you get to the end, tie it again in your slip knot. And then turn the frame around and repeat the other side. So just pull the string undone, and then just take up the tension again. You'll feel the whole frame now start to tighten. Just pull with one hand and hold it in position with the thumb of your other hand, which is the least amount of strain on your fingers. When that's tight, wrap it around the frame again and another slip knot. And you can see now how much it pulls on your herringbone tape and why it's important that you stitch that really firmly. So I'm going to do that one more time all the way around. So once more on my roller frame, really tight on the other side. And then once more with my string. Now you'll find that it gets a little bit harder now to get this undone. It should still come undone fairly easily. And then this time you can pull this as tightly as you can get it. These frames really will take a lot of pressure, so as tight as you can. I get to the end, now this is really tight, I'm going to hold it in place with my thumb so that doesn't move, and wrap it around a couple of times, and then one more slip knot. Pull this one as tightly as you can. Once more on this side. Really should now feel that frame sitting nice and tight. Just hold it in place while I wrap the string around, and last slip knot, You can now see there's your finished frame and how nice and tight that is. This is how your finished embroidery frame should look once you've framed it up, nice and tight, ready for stitching. Don't forget just to tighten the string up every couple of days because it will loosen off. It does stretch this string. Hope you found this tutorial useful, and I'll see you next time.